Hi folks, so I was going to do, there were two videos. So I did the weekly overview yesterday. Please do take a look at it. I realize that I've been recently pushing out a fair amount of content practically every day for the past few days. So I'm going to do this video that I didn't think I was going to do yesterday, but I feel like I would like to. And then I will be doing the video on the Pisces new moon. I want to get the general video out so that then this week I can roll out the sign-specific videos in the members-only portion of the YouTube channel. And then I was going to do kind of add to what I had talked about Mars going direct in my weekly overview. So weekly overview yesterday, this video today, the Pisces new moon video in the next couple of days, and then maybe close to the end of the week, talking about Mars going direct. Mars went direct a couple of days ago, but it's still quite stationary. And if you want information on Mars going direct and how it applies to us right now for this week and next week, take a look at the weekly overview that I did yesterday. I would prioritize the Pisces new moon video when I put that out as the top priority, the weekly overview next. This one, well, I mean, and then this one and the Mars overview. But right now the Pisces overview, but the Pisces new moon video is not out yet. So enjoy the video. I don't know why I'm telling you to prioritize content, but once 4 videos are out there for a week, I will help you prioritize. When I do the Pisces new moon video, I'll remind you of that. Thank you to people who have signed up for memberships without there being a single video there currently. As a reminder, to people who are watching this for the first time, memberships got enabled for my channel 2 or 3 days ago. It's the loveliest, most trusting gesture to kind of just say, fine, I'll join as a member. I was able to find the link where you can join, and I'll put that in the comment section below. And the final bit of housekeeping before I get to the heart of this video is that I am running discount specials, $50 30 to 40 minute reading centered around one topic, and $100 60 to 75 minute reading focused on the astrology of February, March, and April, the eclipses, Venus and Mercury retrograde. Okay, so again, my contact information is in the description box below. You can use that to contact me there. Here's why I wanted to do this video. We talked, it's so nice to just kind of look out there and see these 5 little sparrow finches. I don't know what they are. They're robins. They kind of have this, I don't know, whatever they are. They're chirping away. It's lovely. It's a beautiful day, again, at 77 degrees. Just a little toasty for me, but beautiful. When we did the weekly overview, and even last week, I'd mentioned that Mercury conjuncts Saturn tomorrow. And indeed, for the bulk of this week, a lot of the action is on the wings of Mercury. And I am not going to get into that here. You've got the weekly overview to take a look at for that. There's also a Mercury in Pisces video. There's also last week's weekly overview, which touched on it. It was called On the Wings of, Mercury. So plenty of content there already on it. But there was something about Mercury conjuncting Saturn tomorrow that I want to talk to you about. And I want us to get in a certain mode of thinking and processing as we head to about March the 20th. As we head to the week after the Virgo full moon lunar eclipse. Let me explain. Venus went through Pisces in January, and on January the 18th, Venus conjuncted Saturn. On January the 18th, Venus conjuncted Saturn. January the 13th, just stay with me on this for a couple of minutes. January the 13th was 2 months before the March 13th lunar eclipse. And those of you who've been watching my channel should know that 2 months before the lunar eclipse, the week before, week after, has a powerful resonance. Some people can even feel the eclipse then. With the lunar eclipse, it's like a crescendo sign. As we are getting to the eclipse, the intensity mounts and mounts and mounts. And from 2 months before especially, it starts to crescendo. Indeed, for a lot of people, by the time the eclipse happens, the effect of the eclipse is already in the works, and it is so diffuse that the eclipse might happen and you might feel like, I can tell what has changed and I can tell what has shifted, but it's not as if lightning struck me on that day. Think about the number of eclipses. You go through at least 2 new full moon lunar eclipses every year, and it's not as if lightning strikes you on the day of an eclipse all the time. So from about 2 months before a lunar eclipse, and indeed the date 2 months before the lunar eclipse, the week before, week after that, it's not a very wide, vague 2 months before. It is that 2-week window. A set of events starts and builds on it and reaches some kind of a culmination point by the time the actual eclipse occurs. Now, for some people, you will feel that eclipse the week before and after March the 13th, which is why I said till about March the 20th. And I'll explain why. I just talked about Venus conjuncting Saturn and this eclipse. Just stay with me. Week before and after January the 13th, a powerful marker of the Virgo full moon lunar eclipse on March the 13th. So that's January 13th, week before, after. And indeed on January the 18th, I'll explain why I'm saying indeed, Venus conjuncted Saturn. Tomorrow, February the 25th, Mercury conjuncts Saturn. And then when we get into March, the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. The full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, forgive me. The full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on March the 13th. You've got the full moon in Virgo, and opposite it, by definition, you have the sun in Pisces. The full moon occurs when the sun and the moon are opposite each other, and the full disk of the moon is spotlit. Our emotional, intuitive, energetic self is fully charged and ready to reflect back from the opposite house of where the sun is, a kind of reaction, feeling to whatever it is that is going on in the part of the chart where the sun is and Mercury is and Venus is or has been, or, you know, sort of the annual. Now, when it comes to an eclipse, the nodes are important, and this is a full moon lunar eclipse of release in the Virgo part of the chart. So the house occupied by Virgo, something is being released. Let me be more specific about that something. Something that has served its purpose. Something that is like an overripe fruit. Something that is like an overdeveloped muscle where if you stay in it, it no longer is fertile. It is a kind of barren, stagnant status quo. There's no growth. And if anything, the danger or the risk is that by remaining in that space, it will lead to loss. The Virgo part of the chart. And now that the membership part of the channel is open, now that I'm going to be doing science-specific videos, as we get to the eclipses, I will talk about that. And as I said, if you want us to talk more about your birth chart in that regard, I'm not doing this in a sales pitchy way. It just segues. You can always write to me, and I can get you information on the actual personal readings on March and April. Now, I feel like I took it into a sales. Let's keep going. The full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, opposite the sun, is also practically to the degree opposite Saturn. On March the 12th, the sun conjuncts Saturn. And on March the 13th, the sun moves 1 degree forward of Saturn, and the full moon occurs. And on her way to becoming full, she opposes Saturn. The moon opposes Saturn. So we have a full moon lunar eclipse on March the 13th, opposite the sun and opposite Saturn. Now, here's what I would like to give all of us as a kind of homework assignment. What is going on in the Pisces part of your chart that needs to be stabilized? Either an ambition or desire that needs to be structured, or boundaries that need to be set, or matters that need to be handled with greater responsibility. What is it that Saturn, since March 2023, when he came into, and I'm sorry if this is starting to wave back and forth, you know, the birds are lovely, but of course the breezes are both blowing. Seriously, me and this window and these readings is like, okay. Let me just do the questions first, because I can feel myself start to pull this into a 2-hour reading. Think about it this way. Go back to the week before and after January the 13th. And as you headed to Venus conjuncting Saturn in Pisces on January the 18th. And think about what happened at that time that had an eclipsey quality or a Venus conjuncting Saturn quality. An eclipsey quality would be in the Virgo part of your chart. What is it that is looking to be released in the Virgo part of your chart? I've already given you a sense of how the South Node full moon lunar eclipses work and what they are about. And I will develop this when I do the sign-specific videos in the member part of it. But for now, and for anybody who wants to avail of my content in the way that you've been availing of it for the past few years, and will continue to avail of it on this, because I will continue to do these types of videos. What is it that you think that the South Node eclipses of release in Virgo and the Pisces eclipses of leaning into the Pisces part of the chart are about, but more specifically for the time we're in, the week before and after January the 13th, what is it that happened around that time that kind of answer to the sense of something that needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart, a way of being? It can also, with eclipses, be an attachment to how others should be and how others should behave. I'm going to put that, and that sometimes can be linked to resisting what it is that needs to be released. I know I said a lot in just those couple of sentences. So if we go back to January the 13th, the week before and after, what is it in the Virgo part of the chart that needs to be released? And with Venus conjuncting Saturn, responsibility related to finances, about relationships in the Pisces part of the chart. Lessons learned about how to handle and manage relationships related to the Pisces part of the chart. Mistakes made. Because Venus conjuncting Saturn, if you were good, in the Saturnian sense, if you were responsible, if you were non-reactive, if you acted in the maturest, wisest, most strategic way, that would lead to reward. But with Saturn, given where things are at in the Pisces part of the chart, there can also be a feeling of, if you did not, then Saturn can present consequence. As a reminder, in the Pisces part of the chart, we have Neptune and Saturn. And Saturn is getting us to will stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. And the outcome of that stabilization depends very much on us working with Saturnian energy. Concretizing ambitions. Working towards our highest potential in the Pisces part of the chart. If you have Neptunian goals, artistic goals, inspired goals, Neptune, the muses, that kind of imaginative inspiration, spirituality, monasticism, renunciation, spirituality that is not acquisitive, that is not law of attraction, that is not, oh, I want this, oh, give me this, spirituality that is looking for a dissolution of the egoic and a desire to merge with that higher power, to see things in a more collective light. With Neptune and with Pisces, that desire to dissolve the egoic and that kind of almost kind of Sufistic union with the divine. I know it sounds very esoteric, but it is the one state and space that we can, if and when we get to it, however we get to it, where we can actually experience a stress-free life, a content life, right? So if we look at sort of the Buddhist Four Noble Truths, the first truth is, of course, that life is suffering, or I prefer the word discontent. And that the second truth, I think, or the third one, is that discontent is caused by attachment. And attachment, really, from an egoic perspective, is kind of unavoidable. How much money do I want in the bank? What is it going to take for make me feel secure? How do I want so-and-so to act, or such and such to act? And what do I want to have happen? And I'm attached to this outcome. And these are my goals. These are my dreams. This is what I want. This is why I feel I'm here. Me, 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 me. What do I want? What do I want? And we are in a constant state of monitoring where we are at against where we want to be. And part of that spiritual path is learning how to manage that energy so that we don't turn into Gollum, or we don't go crazy. The North Node is very important from an egoic perspective or an incarnated self perspective to give us a sense of why we are here and what we're here to do, and where our desires are and where our hunger is and where our egoic evolution is. But at the same time, it keeps us in a constant state of wanting more, an awareness of what is lacking. And the only way and the only path to actually experiencing some sort of contentment is through surrendering a desire or an attachment for how it is that things should be, or how we want them to be. And in that kind of space, there's a dissolution of the ego and kind of a merging with source, whatever it takes for us to get there. Now, structuring goals and practices around that. I'm sorry, it's Monday and it's leaf blower day, and of course it would start now at 2:11 p.m. even though it typically is supposed to happen. Give me 1 sec, I'm going to pause this. Okay, we're going to keep going. It's a great mysterious process for some reason, the leaf blowing thing, because sometimes it's over in 30 seconds, which would make sense, and sometimes it goes on for minutes, back and forth, inexplicably, even though anyway. No plants on the side of the apartment complex, but there is a lovely calamansi tree that I stare at, that the birds like, and an avocado tree right there. And then with Saturn going over Pisces, of course, there's the idea of what is it going to take to structure and approach matters related to the Piscean part of the chart with greater responsibility, when we may have been meeting things in kind of a foggy, non-responsible, overly surrendered, oh, it will work itself out, oh, I can't get a handle of these things, oh, it all seems so complicated, Neptunian haze. So Saturn is trying to organize, structure, give us lessons, make us act, get into some sort of shape to make us act in the most responsible ways to ourselves, to fulfill the best and highest potential we can in the Pisces part of the chart. And the first question in our homework assignment that I said, and I'm going to start with this again, is what is it that needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart? Because we've got Saturn and Neptune doing this dance in the Pisces part of the chart, but we've also got the North Node eclipses of leaning into and what we desire and what we want to develop in the Pisces part of the chart. So number one question is, what needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart? Number two is, what needs to be done to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart? Number three is, why are the North Node eclipses going over the Pisces part of the chart? What do we need to lean into? And then we can look at the week before and after January 13th, and March the 13th, as resonating to those South Node eclipses in Virgo. And Venus conjuncting Saturn on January the 18th, Mercury conjuncting the Saturn tomorrow, February the 25th, and the Sun conjuncting Saturn on March the 12th, as somehow resonating with the Pisces part of the chart. Are you with me? Sorry if this seems very, very complex. In a nutshell, what this video is about is that tomorrow Mercury conjuncts Saturn. And really what I just wanted to say in a sentence is, as you approach Mercury conjuncting Saturn, think about what that Venus conjuncting Saturn was about for you on January the 18th. And then I thought, well, I remember January the 18th, and I remember the week before and after January the 13th. And guess what? The full moon lunar eclipse on Virgo happens one day after the Sun conjuncts Saturn, and the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo is opposite Saturn. So when we look at the Pisces part of the chart and we look at Saturn, the following dates become important. The week before and after January the 13th, January the 18th when Venus conjuncted Saturn, February the 25th when Mercury conjuncts Saturn, March the 12th when the Sun conjuncts Saturn, March the 13th when the full moon lunar eclipse happens. And it's not like anything massively, urgently horrible is going to be happening tomorrow. If anything, Mercury conjuncting Saturn could mean that you are taking communication-related action towards solidifying something, working hard towards something, concretizing something, planning something, communicating on ambitious plans, communicating boundaries, trying to manage things responsibly through communication on your own. We know that Mercury and Venus are going to retrograde back into Pisces, and there's going to be cleanup in April. And if you want to know more about this, take a look at my weekly overview from yesterday. This is not going to be a 45-minute video. But as we approach Mercury conjuncting Saturn tomorrow, and as we start to move towards that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, 2.5 weeks from now, I just wanted to start to orient our minds and our processing around these timelines. Saturn is trying to structure, manage Neptunian energies in Pisces that have been going on since 2012 and may have reached some sort of a crisis in 2014, 15, especially 16, 17. That's one set of energies in Pisces that has to be taken very, very seriously. Number two, the other energy in Pisces is the North Node eclipses have moved into, the North Node has moved into Pisces. And the last of the North Node eclipses is on March the 29th in Aries. That's the last of the Aries Libra eclipses. We've already had a lunar eclipse in Pisces on September the 17th of 24. Yeah, I'm right about that. We've had a lunar eclipse in Pisces and overwhelmingly the Virgo Pisces eclipses are lunar eclipses, full moon lunar eclipses. There's a sense of completion. I said this before, on the Aries Libra axis, the eclipses that have been going on since March, April 2023, it's much more expansive. On the Virgo Pisces axis, there's something all the way to February 27 that's looking for completions and closures. So we've had one eclipse already on September the 13th or so, September the 17th of 2024. And this is the second eclipse, a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on that Virgo Pisces axis on March the 13th. So something in the Virgo subpart of the chart needs to be released as we lean into and develop and pursue our evolution on this kind of 3D plane in the Pisces part of the chart. So as the personal planets, Venus in January, Mercury right now, the Sun, the month of Pisces created by the new moon, Venus and Mercury retrograding back into Pisces in April, as all of this activity occurs, and as these planets conjunct Saturn, the North Node, Neptune, with Mercury and Venus conjuncting these planets or points multiple times, either twice or 3 times in Pisces. A lot of our energy and our activity is actually going to go towards the Pisces part of the chart. But in the meantime, there's also something that is a way of being, an attachment to something that has to be released. You know, the South Node, part of the iconography of the North Node and South Node is the North Node is kind of this demonic, desiring, hungry face. And the South Node is, there's no way to be delicate about this, the part of the body that excretes waste. I'm being very delicate about it. And so it's this thing of what has been digested that needs to be, what has reached a kind of peak, what has reached a strength, what has been mastered, for lack of a better word, what is done, what has outlived its purpose in the Virgo part of the chart that needs to be released. And I want you to think about week before and after January the 13th, what happened there? Both a set of activities, and eclipses are situations being eclipsed in and out of our lives. They are changes. It's a molting. It's a shedding of a skin. It is the ending of a book, not a chapter. And I've given this analogy before, you know, sort of these sort of 19th century novels where you had, you know, 13 books in a novel and each book had 25 chapters or something like that. So it's not just a chapter, it's a whole book that is ending as part of, so there's 2 sets of things that could have happened week before and after January the 13th. Developments around releasing what we need to release in the Virgo part of the chart, and responsibility towards either us acting responsibility or us having to deal with lessons around not acting in a Saturnian way with that Venus-Saturn conjunction on January the 18th as we headed to it. And tomorrow, Mercury conjuncting Saturn again provides us the opportunity, and this is something that's been probably going on for the last 7 to 10 days as we've headed towards tomorrow. It's not just today. It's not just today and tomorrow. Responsible actions. That could be acting in our highest interests business-wise, career-wise, work-wise. Boundaries, consequences through communication. This is going to develop even more as we get to the Sun conjuncting Saturn. That is going to be an internal stock-taking. And just as we do that, move past it, the Virgo full moon happens, as if to say, fine, all this stuff is going on from a from a Pisces perspective. Here's my reaction from the Virgo part of the chart. But it's a full moon, yes, but it is also a lunar eclipse, South Node lunar eclipse. So whatever it is that we have started in the process, either released week before after January the 13th, may come up again as we head towards March the 13th. And the purpose of this video was just to present these dates and milestones as breadcrumbs. If we look at these being week before and after January 13th, January the 18th, February the 25th, March the 12th, and March the 13th, week before, week after. With this February 25th Mercury conjuncting Saturn, we are right in the middle of these breadcrumbs. And I wanted to give you that orientation. Do not drive yourself crazy trying to get something to fit just because some astrologer on YouTube is doing this video. Just do a kind of a stock taking and just get a sense of, what happened? What am I building towards? What do I think these eclipses could be about? And if there's something serious that happened with that Venus-Saturn conjunction, ideally something really constructive and beautiful and healing with Venus conjuncting Saturn in the Pisces part of the chart. But for some of us, Venus conjuncting Saturn could also have been a powerful lesson from Saturn with regard to how to start to behave more in our best interests. I told you the leaf blower was going to be back mysteriously, not sure why. With Mercury conjunct Saturn, it could be a mixture of the last week, 10 days on both constructing something north nodey, using communication and cognition to act in your best or highest interest and construct something that could have long-term positive consequences. You know, with Saturn, Saturn is the pleasure of doing the work, writing the paper, writing the thesis, passing the test. The joy, because there's a joy and euphoria that comes from acing the test or booking the job or doing a great interview, but the entire process is just fraught and requires discipline and requires the ability to get something done. Fulfilling promises, building on promises. It just, all of it has this kind of rigor to it. The joy and the pleasure of creating a syllabus and a plan and a lecture and being prepared and being thorough, and the great joy and satisfaction, the cherry on the cake of dedicated, impassioned labor that produces a result that somehow showcases us in our highest potential. And there's no way to it other than Saturnian work. There are no shortcuts. There is just, you know, if you're going to go and sing that aria and you're going to do all those trills and you're going to do all those gymnastics, it comes, or you're going to play the violin that way, or you're going to play the piano that way. It comes at the end of practice, 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 work, work, work. And that kind of reward and joy and building something is a very Saturnian. So Mercury conjunct Saturn, Venus conjunct Saturn, Sun conjunct Saturn does not have to be negative. But it could be this sense of, for some people, it could be a couple of things. It could be constructing something, but there could also be, if the Pisces part of the chart has lessons around it related to boundaries or deception or playing cards close to chest, etc., or how, because where Saturn goes, he is actively teaching us lessons around how to act in a more mature manner. And with that Venus-Saturn conjunction, Mercury-Saturn conjunction, Sun-Saturn conjunction, and these planets coming back and us trying to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, first till the end of April, then from September of 25 to February of 26, there could also be a component of, if you're not, remember that with Mercury, everything starts to coalesce here. There could be a thinking and a processing of lessons and what to do and how to, even if the emails have not gone, you know, there can be thinking through things, processing of lessons. Oh, what have I done? How do I protect myself? What consequences has this had? There could be some element of Saturn requiring us to start to think about what it means to act responsibly in the Pisces part of the chart. And if there has been some sort of damage, then what is the path of integrity around releasing what needs to be released, or accepting the consequence, or fighting for what we think is right, or because, you know, sometimes the consequences, sometimes with Saturn, the lessons are around how to deal with crazy people. And the only response to that, if you have been reactive, is not to say, oh, I will just acquiesce and I will accept this. Because you've got to look at, even if you're dealing with, let's say, it's almost, you know, I like to give that example with Saturn. If you were walking down a street and someone was walking towards you and they didn't quite seem totally present or centered, what would you do? Would you just try to move to the other side of the street and walk on? Or, you know, would you do something Saturnian, such as handle things responsibly? Or would you act in a reactive way? But the fact that you act in a reactive way and that provokes some sort of a reaction that is unhinged doesn't mean that you are responsible for that unhinged behavior. And not to, you know, some people are still responsible for that. And so in that case, then how do you now set boundaries? There's still a lesson to be learned about. I should just have moved to the other side of the street, or I should have turned around and walked away and found another street to walk down, or, you know, there could be Saturn going, depending on the patterns, etc., that in our life Saturn is trying to manage, there could be something along the lines of lessons. But at the same time, sometimes when we find ourselves embroiled in situations where we're finding that we may not be acting in the wisest or most strategic manner, that still doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be accepting of, we get to see cause and effect. We get to understand and learn and mature and grow around how to be effective as opposed to how to be right. We get to process how we might contribute to certain outcomes, all of which fair. But it doesn't always mean that if something is fundamentally unfair or wrong, that we have to acquiesce and we shouldn't set boundaries. So some of that kind of processing could also be occurring, whether you are actually actively in the process of communicating around it or not. But there's something here with these dates around what is being released in the Virgo part of the chart. What are we stabilizing in the Pisces part of the chart, and what are we leaning into in the Pisces part of the chart? And what occurred week before after Jan 13th? And where we headed week before and after March the 13th with the Virgo eclipses and the full moons, and January 18th, which was close to that Jan 13th date, Venus conjuncting Saturn, tomorrow Mercury conjuncting Saturn, March the 12th, the Sun conjuncting Saturn, March the 13th, the full moon lunar eclipse happening. There's something there about these dates that might have markers or breadcrumbs as we head towards that full moon lunar eclipse. And it's just, the purpose of this was just to kind of highlight those dates for you so that those of you who actually are going through something or who find this kind of content useful, you can just try and kind of piece that together for yourself and see what it all means. Okay? That's all. Wow, that was a little labored, and I'm sorry about that. Okay, next I'm going to work on that Pisces new moon video. I'm going to work on the sign-specific videos for the member part of the channel. You can, if you want to start becoming a member, you can start doing that now. I will let you know once the videos are up there as well. But there's a joining information thing in the description box. Email addresses in the description box if you're interested in readings, the discounted readings for the astrology of Feb, March, and April, the discounted readings around a single topic for 30 to 40 minutes, my regular readings. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already. And when you subscribe there's the whole bell icon business. So click on the wiggly bell on top, you know, when you subscribe so that you're notified whenever I put out a video. Like, comment on the video if you feel so inclined. I'm going to start responding to, or at least reading and hearting all the comments, not that the memberships are live. I stopped responding to the comments for about a month, month and a half, 2 months, because there were comments around, can you do some tutorials and can you start to do some science-specific videos? And I thought, well, I'll respond to that, but let me go ahead and enable memberships, and then I'll say, well, this is where you can find that content. And then I was just like, well, I'm going to stop responding to comments until the memberships are out so I can actually go back and play. So I'll start that process of doing, I've been looking at and reading all the comments. I just, at the very least, like, acknowledge them. And it's something that is fun to do. So there's that part of it. But liking and commenting on videos gives them greater circulation on YouTube. It's a free way that you can support the channel. There's a thanks button underneath this video. You can use that to contribute to the channel. You can donate to the channel. There's information in the description box. I will leave it at that. Next 2 videos, as of right now, the Pisces new moon video, and then I think we need to do a video just kind of recapping Mars going direct and clearing his shadow degrees by the end of April into the beginning of May. And yeah, that's going to be it. All right, thanks for your patience, and I will chat with you guys soon. Take care.